Welcome, in front of me is the Samsung Galaxy A34, and today I'll show you a couple of tweaks and the tricks you can do on this phone. So to get started, let's open up settings, and from here we're gonna begin by going under the display section. And here we have things like the dark mode settings, which allows you to set it so it automatically switches between a light and dark mode based on the time of day. You have two options. You can select it to be on a sunset to sunrise or custom schedule, so pick whichever one you prefer. Going back and a little bit further down, we have motion smoothness, which gives us two options, either high or standard. If you're planning to prioritize battery life, I would recommend selecting a standard one. This will give you a little bit of a better battery life over the high one, but this will only affect the screen on time. If you don't use your phone at all, the standby time will be the same. Now going back even further down, we have screen mode, which by default Samsung always goes for vivid, and Samsung's approach to vivid colors is absolutely ridiculous. So they do like oversaturate their colors to just insane level, like this as an example. Just bring up a brightness just a little bit. There we go. So yeah, these colors are severely overdone in my personal opinion, so I do prefer to use natural for literally everything on these phones. And obviously if you tend to look at it same way, where the colors are just overdone, you can select it to be natural. It will just desaturate the color just a little bit to make them look a little bit more realistic. Now moving even further down the line, we have our edge panel, which is this little thing right over here that you can see. Every Samsung has this. And by default, if we just whip that out, there we go. It has only a couple applications in here. You can obviously view all of them and add more if you want to, but you can also change the color of it, so how it looks like on the side. You can select the transparency, so it's more or less visible. You can change the size of it. So I'm gonna change it to black just so you can see how it looks like. So there we go. And going back, we also should have, there we go, panels, and here you can select additional panels. So when you're flipping through them, because you can actually flip through them, you can add additional ones, like for instance weather. And now I have a weather widget right here. Now, I'll be honest, I did use weather myself, and it kind of defeats the purpose. I'm not gonna lie, it's shit. Now the reason I'm saying that is because it takes longer to load the freaking widget with info about the current weather than it does to actually launch the freaking application. So kind of defeats the purpose of it. You'd have it to basically boost up the speed of getting the info and having it at an easier access to it, but it just makes it even harder because get it out and couldn't add location, cool, whatever, but I'm speaking from experience. It will give me a last day's weather, which I don't care what the weather was like yesterday. I remember it. I care right now before I leave home. So I probably would stay away from this specific one, just to point that out. Other ones I would assume work a little bit better, though I haven't used very many of them. Now additionally, you also have the Galaxy Store, which will take you to obviously the Galaxy Store, but in here you will have access to additional widgets that I don't know, Samsung or maybe other people create. I will warn you though, they are paid for the most part. The better ones that you will probably find use for are paid, though not that expensive, at like I think it was 99 cents or $1.99. So they are fairly affordable, obviously, but it's a little bit of a middle finger in my opinion still, when this is just a exclusive feature for a Samsung, and especially when you paid $1,500 for it and you still have to buy the freaking widgets. It really adds salt to the wound. So I can check it out. I probably wouldn't recommend buying any, just because supporting this kind of garbage behavior is not very recommended in my opinion. Now anyway, moving on to additional things, we will have the navigation bar, which is a little bit lower here, keeping still in the display section. Now here we have gesture navigation, so we can enable that, and it will switch from buttons to gesture nav. Now we also have additional option below that for gesture hands. If we turn that off, it will hide this bar at the bottom. Now it's hide probably isn't necessarily the most correct way to describe it, because what it does is actually shifts it off of the screen. So it changes, if I'm correct, it changes the aspect ratio of a display to be bigger than the actual display is, so it just kind of moves it down. And because of that, it will cause you some problems. Now, it gives you a nice clean aesthetic to your device by completely just hiding it while still being able to access it, as you can see. But if you use a third-party launcher, which I do on my device, oh, be prepared for a world of pain. So you'll be swiping sometimes 4 times before the phone decides to be like, okay, cool, you can actually go home, here you go. So just keep that in mind. If you have this kind of problem, just re-enable the gesture like hands or whatever they're called. Now, I presume this is happening because it shifts it off the screen, and that basically causes the problems for phone to recognize that you're trying to swipe on the gesture instead of just do this as you swipe up and down on the screen. So if you re-enable them, it just shifts it back up and should work a little bit better. Now also you have the more options here, and you have the gesture sensitivity. So that is primarily for like swiping from the sides. As you can see, it basically doesn't affect the bottom bar, which is again kind of dumb, considering this is the only thing that gives you the most amount of problems, but it's also the only thing that isn't supported by the gesture sensitivity. Go figure. So for just swiping from the sides, you can increase it if you tend to just miss it. So when you're trying to go back and it doesn't like activate the gesture, make it higher, and then the field in which it will activate it just becomes much greater, as you can see. So I can just swipe kind of in a decent middle of a display. Normally, to activate gestures, you just swipe off of the screen onto it, and this will activate it, but this basically allows me to go from literally the screen. So yeah. Now personally, I would probably not recommend doing such a thing, just because it will cause you some other problems with applications that have some kind of gestures. For instance, if you have a panel, you can swipe it sometimes by doing a swipe to the left, it will bring up some kind of like panel. For instance, Discord does this. With this, you will basically be activating the back gesture along with it. So when you let go, it would normally bring the back, well, take out the panel, but because the back gesture makes it go back, you're basically achieving nothing. So keep that in mind. Anyway, moving on to the last thing, it's going to be the, as Samsung calls it, side key. Because apparently we only have 1 out of 3 side keys that they consider on a side. So these must be on the top, I guess. But going to it, let me just back out to the main settings page, and we're going to go into advanced features right here, because side key is advanced. And here you can change it from a wake up Bixby to doing something more traditional, more normal, like power off menu. Now, I personally never use Bixby. I hate it, and I hate how Samsung is trying to cram this down my throat with every like intent to make me use this, but I have zero intents of using it. So I prefer to switch this, because power menu, even though I don't use it that often, I still use it infinitely more than I do this little thing right here. So you can change it right here if you want to get back this little mode. I also find it interesting, just as a little side note right here, how you can change this quickly right here, side key, when you have the power off menu, and you can switch it to Bixby right here. But if you have it the other way around, we ain't got that. So yeah, no options for you here. So something a little funny to point out here. But anyway, this would conclude the tweaks and tricks that I want to show you. So if you found this video helpful, don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and thanks for watching.